My next guest stunned the political world himself back in 2016 because he defeated Democrat powerhouse and 40-year incumbent Dick Mell to become committeeman of the 33rd Ward. Aaron Goldstein is a lawyer, a former assistant Cook County public defender, and he joins me tonight in our WGN studios to talk about the campaign. Here's our interview. Your background, as I looked at it, very public defender and defense lawyer, private defense lawyer as a career. So my question is, I get the people part of you, but for much of what you would do as an attorney general, don't you need a little prosecutor in you too?
Well, first of all, I've done civil rights cases, so I've handled civil cases in which I've prosecuted civil rights abuses. So I represented families whose kids were killed by the police department. Police officers, obviously. I've represented individuals in the NATO protests and the Occupy Chicago protests who sued against the police department. So you're prosecuting cases there. So I have civil background, I have criminal background, I have defense background, I have civil plaintiffs background as well. And I'm the only one with the unique perspective of understanding having to represent an individual next to me.
And you've said that. I've also heard you say that you'll be the most, or you are the most experienced courtroom trial lawyer. I look at these things carefully because I look exactly how you worded it, because you've been in practice for a period of years. But Jesse Ruiz has been around for 40 years. So is your sense that you just number of trial days, regardless of the number of years in practice? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I've been an attorney for 17 years. I'm one of the youngest of the bunch. But no one's tried more cases than me. That's just a fact. I've handled thousands of, represented thousands of clients, hundreds of trials, nearly 40 jury trials, federal trials, state trials, civil and criminal. So I have a wide range of courtroom experience and trial experience.
To what extent does being a politician play into this? And what I mean by that is you've got people like Pat Quinn, Governor Quinn, and Kwame Raoul, who they're lawyers, but they kind of get the political piece of this. You do too. You're the 33rd Ward committeeman, and you knocked out Dick Mell for that, so you're no novice in how to play this game. But talk to me about your political view.
Well, I mean, as far as my sort of leanings, I'm very progressive and believe in that political philosophy. As far as just politics in general.
I mean, playing the game.
Yeah, I mean, playing the game. This should be an independent office. The question is, will you work with the Democrats or the Republicans or who the governor is? I'm supposed to be independent. So I'm really not supposed to be playing politics as an attorney general if and when I become that. So really, whether you have the political experience or not, I don't think that's helpful at all to become attorney general.
You've talked about Lisa Madigan as being competent but cautious. What does that mean?
Well, I think the office is competent. I think you have skilled lawyers there who do their job well. The problem is she's been cautious on a lot of issues. For example, the environment. There's tons of environmental regulations that are being violated every single day. I spoke to one family who talked about in the southeast side of Chicago, manganese was found in the toenails of children, higher level of manganese. This is a neurotoxin. They sent that information to the Attorney General's office. They received no information back other than they're working on it. They are waiting for referrals from the IEPA to actually do something. That's too cautious. There's nothing stopping the Attorney General from actually defending the people and prosecuting these environmental crimes and doing something about it. So I think she's been too cautious on many of those issues.
In this political environment, the problem at the Quincy Veterans Home, Democrats placing it on the doorstep of Governor Rauner. Governor Rauner going, we can. But here you are talking about the environment and being cautious and all that. Should Lisa Madigan, should the AG's office have been more active at handling the Quincy situation, or was that outside your world?
Well, it's definitely not outside the world. I mean, the question is, what did they know? And I can't speak to exactly what that office knew. But if they knew something and they didn't act on it, obviously they were too cautious and they didn't, do their duty. So I don't know exactly what was known, before all this came out. But Rauner certainly, has some. He should be held to task as well, and his defunding of all these institutions throughout the state, he's responsible for a lot of that.
Should the attorney, so it is out now. So if you were Attorney General, would you be doing something with regard to the Quincy problem?
Absolutely. First, I don't know how much I'd be defending the state on these issues. I would make sure that there's a fair settlement for all the families involved. Representing the people is most important. So yes, the Attorney General has a huge role to play right now.
How do you draw that line between when because there's a great dichotomy there, representing the state, representing the people? You got to be able to do both.
Yes, and it is a case-by-case situation, and certainly there are those tough conflicts. In the end, my job is to represent the people and to defend the Constitution. The perfect example that everyone talks about is the pension bill. 2013, they passed the pension bill. I knew, I don't claim to be some highfalutin scholar, but I knew that that was unconstitutional. The Attorney General should have known it was unconstitutional. She should have been advocating for it not to be passed, and then should not have defended it. I would not have defended that unconstitutional pension bill. Instead, we wasted money, we wasted time, and now we have no pension reform at all.
Would you, by the way, as Attorney General, those conversations still go on, right? And we also have, obviously, gubernatorial candidates are talking about this. Should you play a role, or is the role of the Attorney General to say, look, legislature, do what you're going to do, and I'll pick it up from there?
Well, I think I will be an advocate as to particular legislation, particularly
before
if
it's passed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, and that's really the role of the Attorney General, one of the main roles. The other thing is to advise the legislature to say, hey, we've done the research, we've looked at this. This isn't going to pass constitutional muster. So you might want to go back to the drawing board and fix that problem.
Let's take a look at some of the specific issues. I mean, violence, #1 issue for so many people, certainly in the city of Chicago, but around the state, having just lived through the Parkland situation where the students are being active about doing something about it. But you yourself had your own run-in with violence during this campaign. You were shooting a commercial in your ward about 3:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
What happened?
So it was just a couple blocks away from my house. We were filming a commercial, and out of nowhere, I had a gun put to my side. They took our phones, they took our cameras, and we were, robbed. And thankfully, everyone was safe. So it was a harrowing experience.
Have you ever had anything like that happen to you before?
Not quite that. I mean, Chicago Public Schools, I've seen my share of issues, but nothing quite like that.
So, gun legislation, all the stuff people want, nothing was going to stop that. That's always the argument, right? How are you going to stop it? Or would it?
I mean, I don't know what would stop exactly that, but here's what I know, is I look at the top. I look at the individuals and organizations that are responsible for this, specifically the gun manufacturers. I would be looking very strongly at them. Now, there's federal immunity, which boggles my mind that an actual organization, an actual manufacturer has immunity. No other company has such a thing. No other industry has that.
Got a strong voice, don't they?
They do. And I think a little courage, a little creativity, going after the gun manufacturers and particular loopholes of that immunity. Newtown, Connecticut, they sued, and it's still pending right now. I think we should pay close attention to that, and I would look into lawsuits against the gun manufacturers.
But you also know, I mean, the problem is it's not the guns that are in Illinois, it's the guns that are coming into Illinois. Certainly. That trail, Mississippi, Indiana, these other states, you have no control over those states.
But here's the thing, it's simple supply and demand. The supply way overrates the demand. Not that many people want these many guns, yet they're flooding our communities with guns. And yes, it's coming from Indiana, Mississippi, and other states. So that's an issue we have to work on legislatively as well. But the gun manufacturers, I think, know exactly what they're doing. If you saw the rise in gun sales when President Obama became the president, it was a completely racist thing that they were doing. They knew a black man was president, so they preyed to the fear of white people who ended up buying guns.
Well, I think the argument was that a lot of people said he's going to take our guns.
Yes, and they were lied to. That's the reality. And it was based on a racist point of view that a black man is going to take their guns. So we have to go after these gun manufacturers that know exactly what they're doing.
How worried are you that there's the National Reciprocity Act, which it's already through the House.
Yeah.
And if that passes and President Trump signs it, guess what? The 18-year-old who buys an assault weapon in Florida can drive it here.
Yeah, I mean, so much for states' rights. The Republicans who believe in states' rights and the independence of each state now want to nationalize everything. I mean, it's so backwards. It's so crazy. I'll do everything I can to fight that if that becomes a law. All
right. Those are issues you're facing, but you have an agenda, and I want to give you a chance to talk about your agenda. We're going to do that when we come back after these words. We're going to visit with Aaron Goldstein. Stay with us. And we are back with Aaron Goldstein. He's going for the Democratic nomination for Illinois Attorney General. You've got an aggressive, you call it bold, aggressive, progressive. #1, your plan to stand up to power and fight corruption. Welcome to Illinois. I mean, it's a nice statement, but specifically, how?
It's a big task. So standing up to the big powers and the big banks and the corporations that are taking advantage of us. We talked about the environmental issues and the corporations that are taking advantage of everyday Illinoisans every single day that we have to stand up to. The other big power is that guy in the White House. We have to stand up to Trump every single day.
And Jeff Sessions.
Yes. I mean, I see them as one and the same. And really what they're doing is they're abdicating their responsibility when it comes to police reform. They're abdicating their responsibility when it comes to environmental protection. So who's going to fill the vacuum? It's these corporations that pollute, and the police department that are able to have these abuses against citizens in the state. As far as corruption, it's really a bookend. One is Freedom of Information Act and Transparency and having Open Meetings Act. There's a public access counselor that the Attorney General actually has, and it's very underfunded. It's only $1 million budget, but they actually resolve only 80% of the referrals that come in. That has to improve. So we need more funding, but we have to do better. And we have to resolve these FOIA requests in open meetings. The other end of the bookend is actually prosecuting corruption, which I will do. And Lisa Madigan in 2003 said, I will investigate corruption. It'll be a top priority, even if it means investigating my father. We're now in 2018 and nothing's been done.
How about her father? Is there something to investigate that you're aware of?
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of smoke, let's just say, and some of it's just unethical behavior. Some of it's conflict of interest. We don't know if crimes have occurred, and I can't speak to it because I don't have the innermost details.
But you're not afraid of it.
Oh, absolutely not. So I mean, the question is would you prosecute him? And I say I can't. I don't know yet, but I'm not going to foreclose it.
I sat on the ARDC for 25 years, the Ethics Commission for Lawyers. One of the things that's always bugged me, let's see if it bothers you, the fact that property tax lawyers are sitting in the legislature passing property tax bills and representing corporations to lower their property taxes. People talk about it, people are bothered by it, but apparently it's okay. Is it okay?
It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. So if you are a big property owner and you want your property tax, to be reduced, you don't say, hey, get the best lawyer who's skilled at this and can run the numbers. No, get Madigan or Burke, because they're the powerful ones that they're going to go to their buddy Barrios and get that fixed. Meanwhile, the middle class and the lower class people who are also renters are affected by this as well, but the small property owners, they get nothing.
What can the AG do about it?
Well, investigate it if there is an issue. Advocate for a conflict of interest law. Speak out. Say, you know what? Maybe a law isn't being broken, but this is highly unethical.
So is that the answer? You have so much in your platform about criminal justice reform, bails, and all, over-incarceration, all that kind of stuff, and I respect that. The question is, the AG can't do anything about it. So are you seeing yourself as the people's advocate in working with the legislature? Because that's where this stuff has to happen.
Well, yes and no. One is an advocate and advocating for those things. Two is actually giving the information. We can investigate and we can come up with specific platforms to change things. I'm obviously a big advocate of legalizing marijuana. Here's a perfect example. Robinson versus Lewis. That's a pending case against the Cook County judges regarding cash bail. Lisa Madigan's office right now is defending that lawsuit. I would not be defending it. Cash bail is unconstitutional the way it's administered in Cook County, and we've gotten to the point.
For people that don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So there's a pending case that's filed against Cook County, basically saying that cash bail is unconstitutional. So what is happening? People are sitting in jail because they can't post $100. These are petty offenses. These are misdemeanors where they can't post money. No one should be sitting in jail because they can't post the cash. If they're a threat to the community or a flight risk, absolutely, you keep them in jail. But they shouldn't be pending trial and not being able to get out of jail because they can't post a certain amount of cash. We need that to be gotten rid of throughout the entire state. That lawsuit is being defended by the Attorney General. I would not be defending that.
So police accountability also part of your platform. Quan McDonald, we know these issues that have gone on. At the same time, you want law enforcement to be your friend as well. So how do you walk that line?
Well, I think we have to be honest. Law enforcement is crucial, right? When I was robbed, I called the police. So I completely respect the police, but we also need them to do their job and follow the Constitution. And the problem is, as President Obama's study and the Department of Justice study indicated, that there's tons of infractions and abuses that were taking place every single day. So we need a monitor, and we need the community involved. The community should have enforcement power over any consent decree.
We're about out of time, but immigration issues, obviously, whether we're a sanctuary state or not is debatable, I suppose. Yeah. But what is your view about immigrants and the role of ICE in trying to go after people? And should they, can they?
Well, look, if the federal government is going to deport a bunch of people, all I can do is everything I can to stop that and make sure that the state is not cooperating with them. Because, look, we don't need to be dedicating our resources to deport people that aren't doing anything wrong other than just being here trying to have a good opportunity for them and their family. So I'll do everything I can, just like what was happening in Chicago when they tried to withdraw federal funds. I would defend that as well and make sure that we are entitled to those federal funds, and you can't deputize our law enforcement personnel to go after people who are immigrants.
Really quickly, you say you're going to defend the Constitution, U.S. obviously in Illinois.
Yes.
Illinois' Constitution has that a pension provision that says we cannot diminish the provision. It's why it keeps losing every time they try and change
Yes.
it. Do you see the AG also in the role of advocating for constitutional change?
I like that constitutional provision. I think that's the most fair provision we have. Stop taking away from people who are receiving a pension. Find other ways to create revenue.
What about the role as change? Do you see it at all?
I see
Or it says what it says and you're there.
Well, I support that portion of the Constitution.
A general question.
Like, do I see Oh yeah. I mean, I think that there's roles in any constitutional change, but that specific provision, I think, should be left alone.
All right, fair enough. Aaron Goldstein.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Good luck on the campaign trail. We'll be right back after these words.